Hello and welcome to another episode of the D1 Daily Podcast. Burkie and Roons back at you. Burkie, we are officially in the no sleep zone. Conference previews. We make fun of the fake season, Burkie, but the fake season's for real dudes only. Like you're gonna lose. You're not gonna have sleep. You're gonna be juggling chainsaws. Like the fake season's for real dudes.
I think there's a piece of the fake season that's for real dudes. I would call it inefficient because we tend to fill our brain with a lot of conversations and data that ends up 10 games in, like the questions get changed. Some get answered, some get changed, some get flipped upside down. So some of it feels like false hustle to me. Some of it feels a little bit like diving into first base head first. But it is for high motor people. I'll give you that.
Yeah, you better have a high motor for the fake season. I would say though, like I'm very proud of that paradox, and we're gonna run with that. The fake season is for real dudes. That might be the greatest paradox of my life right now. So that said, what do these two real dudes want to talk about today?
Okay, so I think it would be worthwhile to bring up something that's actually a real part of the fake season that we find ourselves in, which is where humans gather together and congregate at this glorious annual tradition, otherwise known as the American Baseball Coaches Association Conference, the ABCA, where unfortunately I've only been able to attend a few times. Every time I absolutely love my experience, but this whole youth basketball coaching thing tends to get in the way this time of year. However, you are a yearly participant, and when's the last ABCA you missed, Roons?
It's been at least a decade. Yes, it's so funny, Burkie. I went less when I coached, because when you were playing. Yeah, when you were playing, remember we were practicing during the ABCA.
You're right.
Thankfully, they've changed those rules.
That's a good point. Heck, in the West Coast, you were almost playing by then.
Yes.
So, tell you what, let's do this. Let's run down just some hot stove issues from the ABCA, and you can give us some stories, some good interactions. Don't be afraid to give some pod love if there was some, D1 daily love that was shelled out. But just what comes top of mind when you think about your experience this past week at the ABCA?
So I'll start with what you just said. Like, had numerous people come up to me and say that they're listening to the D1 Daily Pod. And if you're still listening, we really appreciate that. Like Mitch Thompson comes to mind of Baylor. I feel like, Burkie, we're getting a lot of coaches that are listening, which is really flattering. And some of my favorite people on the planet Earth. So that was really cool. I had some random folks come up and say, that they were enjoying it, which was awesome. I would say some, when I try to explain the ABCA to my day job, like I take PTO on this weird the first Friday in January. My day job tends to give me a hard time. They're like, man, like first week back and we're already like can't make a 5-day week. Like we're already in a pitch count. And I'm like, all right, everybody breathe. It's my Star Trek convention, but just seeing everybody is so wonderful. And, like one highlight, Jason Esposito, I remember covering him, and now he's an assistant coach at Vandy, and that is so cool. But the big hot topic items, and then we can pick them apart as we wish. Hey, we got a new umpire coordinator, George Drocious, retired and did a wonderful job. Like no one's going to be perfect in that role. And we got to meet Jeff Gosney, who is young and aggressive and has some thoughts. And so he was really interesting to hear from. Jordan Bishel of Cincinnati brought up the concept of. Go ahead.
Hold on.
You want to go one at a time?
Hold on, Roons.
Yeah.
Let's not get thrown out at second base to lead off the game. All right, let's hard turn. But you can put on the brakes and get back to first base. Let's not make turn a good thing into a bad thing. Okay.
Good coaching.
So what did we learn? What did we learn from what's our new umpiring coordinator's name?
Jeff Gosney. Yeah. What we learned? Hey, he gave his cell phone out to a room full of 2,500 people.
He's aggressive in what way?
So he just like, aggressive in that, like, hey, his message was not.
Might not like the people he.
Yeah, what I thought, that's a great point. The aggressive part is he just basically said we're not doing status quo. He said no, no offense, but there's things that we can do better. And like that's a tricky message because you're kind of slamming the group before, but he was not. He was respectful, but he let it rip. And in that regard, and he talked about assignments in the postseason are going to be more merit based. Like it's a dog and pony show. It's a talk, but liked his vibe, I think is what I'm trying to say. Like this is a guy that wants it to. He basically said this, Burkie. If I summed it up, the game is growing like crazy. The skill of the umpires has to grow with the game, and I love that.
Yeah, I don't know that there was anybody in the room that probably didn't love that. I would say too with and this is why I put the stop sign on at first here because I wanted to unpack this a little bit. I don't think there is a more well-received message from an umpiring standpoint than first of all, your initial postseason time is going to be earned, but then to graduate into the deep of the postseason, that's going to be earned, right? Because you and I both have been here where there's been some situations early in the postseason, and then you're like, wait, this guy's doing Omaha. Wasn't he part of that? That kind of thing. So I just thought that's awesome. And there are way more eyeballs on our sport. And so, we want to make sure that the way it's being umpired and then the way the umpires are being policed, that's growing and the oversight increasing. I think everybody loves to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Randy Bruns, who's still very much involved, he gave a rule clarification. You know how, Burkie, where we have pitchers nowadays that are pitching from the windup, but it looks like they're from the stretch. You and I have chatted about it a little bit, like where if I'm a right-handed pitcher, like my chest is facing the third base dugout, but I'm trying to pretend like I'm throwing from the windup. If I understood it correctly, which maybe I didn't, the way it was explained was, hey, if you're that pitcher and you've got, 2 feet, you've got your whatever foot, your left foot in front of your right foot on the mound, we assume you're pitching from the stretch. If that's your windup, you have to verbalize that. If you don't verbalize that, you're in the stretch for all we know. And so that was interesting to me. I liked the clarity of that. I want to hear another umpire say it. Like I want to confirm that with like our good friend Paul Gillier, but that makes a lot of sense to me that like what you're doing, pitcher, you're in the stretch. Now, if you verbalize this is your windup, okay, we got you. But like now where it gets wonky is this, are we going hitter to hitter with this? Like the pitcher's got to say it every hitter. So I want to get more clarification on that, but that is intuitive to me because your feet say you're in the stretch. So anyway, I don't know if that's helpful.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's fascinating. I think that the piece that's really interesting to me is as far as some of that stuff's concerned is how many new people, like, so take the pitcher stretch thing out of it, but just as far as the way umpires are being evaluated, are there some umpires out there that maybe you and I haven't really seen that they identify are top of the class that maybe haven't been put in the spotlight in that regard? I'm interested to see how all that shakes out, but I do like the fact that there's a new vibe around that. That's exciting. What else? What else you got for us as we get to second base?
Yeah, Jordan Bischel talked about exit velocities, and that's a very controversial topic because, we all lived through spinning the equipment backwards in the early 2010s, and the game was just gross, right? Like you couldn't score from second base on a single back then because the right fielder was basically like backup first base, right? Like it was, we had deadened it so bad. And Jordan Bischel's point was that, hey, exit velocities have gone up. And if we don't start to really dive into this topic, we could wake up in a day where an injury happens, God forbid, and we as the baseball community don't get to regulate ourselves. Somebody gives us the new regulation. And I think, even though I think it's a very fair perspective, the devil is clearly in the details, clearly. But, and like the data on exit velocities is a little bit wonky. Like Coastal Carolina's got a really smart analytics guy, and he sent a counter tweet out to this topic that said the exit velocities in college baseball are not as dramatic as you think they are. And the reason he's saying that is because, remember, college baseball's got 1 million more players than MLB. And, we have 307 teams. They have 32 teams.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's an interesting topic, but I can't disagree. I have no interest in going back to what we were in the 2010s. But again, I don't want to be insensitive to injury. I just think we could, even with those dead bats and balls, if a pitcher got hit with a line drive, we'd have a problem. Like, you can't deaden them enough to make it safe for the pitchers, in my opinion. But baseball's dangerous in that regard. But I do think Jordan's ultimate point is we should study this before someone else does it for us.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I do think sport is not safe. Thus, we love it because it's unpredictable and anything can happen, and nobody likes to see people get hurt, but you can't make it completely safe. Now, is it up to the adults, not the adults, but the adults in the room to make sure it's as safe as possible? Yes, it is. That being said, I think, it's just the rebirth of the gorilla ball era that we have experienced in the last 4 seasons, especially, 2021, probably till correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know of like a catastrophic moment in our sport. And that's a pretty big sample size. That's a lot of games. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of games. So I say that to say, not that like it's okay since nobody's gotten hurt. By the same token, like you said, even if we dumbed it down 5 miles an hour, I mean, if a ball hits a guy's face at 105 instead of 110, is that, I don't, and I'm trying to make a joke, but I do think it's a big sample size of the fact that I can't recall a major catastrophic moment. And there's a few of them that happen every year in the big leagues. Feels like, every year in the big leagues, there's a couple nasty ones. And it's just, and I will say, and we'll move on, in the world of 8 million pads for the hitters and oven mitts and all this kind of stuff, like, the one functional thing that doesn't exist in our sport that I think is, like, if a pitcher wanted to wear face protection, like, why not? Mm-hmm. Why not?
I'm with you. At the very least, could we have pitchers wearing Scullies, right? Like, Scullies look cool on base coaches. Yeah, I'm with you on that. You ready for another topic? Can I try and make a run at third base here?
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's get to third. A lot of ways to score from third, Roons. We try to get to third when we can get to third. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of ways to score from third. Let's get there.
Can't be scared going first to third. I'm going to put these two together. Run rule and extra innings came together. And there's frustration in the coaching community about the lack of uniformity in the run rule. Like, hey, today we're playing 10 run rule, tomorrow we're not. Coaches don't like run rules because it that kind of complementary playing time that you can get the bottom of your roster. I do think we have to decide for coaches on this. Like, their input is obviously critical, but I just think the game needs a 10-run rule. That's my opinion. Like, some of our games can get really out of hand. So the question, the way it was posed by Jordan Bishop was, hey, do we consider a 12-run rule that placates both sides? My thought on that would be absolutely not. Like, we're either in or we're out, right? Like, let's not try to be half pregnant here. Like, if a run rule is the way to go, let's do a 10-run rule. Like, a 12-run rule is just confusing to the fans. Like, it's just, I'm not on it personally. And then extra innings, do we do what MLB is doing with the ghost runner at second base? Thoughts, Coach Burke?
The ghost runner at second base to me is a slam dunk 100%. Like I think it's more exciting way to watch extra innings. We all know that people are worried about our roster limitations and injuries, and I think it's good for TV. Like, we know Coach Neal will be 1,000,000% in favor of this rule, which is always a good perspective to what would Dave Neal do? We know he would put it in place. So I just play the sport. I really do. I honestly think I would be a fan of it in play of Major League Baseball in the NCAA tournament. I just think it's a better way to play the sport.
Yep.
I really do. Think about it. NFL football, college football, you get the ball at the 25-yard line. Well, that's not how their sport's played. Like, why do we just have to play the sport the way the sport is, quote unquote, always played? Like, other sports don't do that. All of a sudden college basketball is a 5-minute period. Well, okay, a 5-minute period, that changes the way everybody manages a game. When you start thinking, okay, we might only have 6 or 8 possessions here. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it makes a ton of sense. And I honestly think it makes the product better. I really do. I think the sport is better. And I really like the run rule too. I would be in favor of both of those things. Kind of like we were talking about some of the rule changes with 3-batter minimum and you only get 2 picks till you have to go to the plate. Like, I would be a fan of a lot of those things as the game continues to evolve.
Yep. I'm with you. Final topic, Burkie, was NCAA tournament related. Our good friends at 643 Charts and their metric DSR, Diamond Sports Rankings, is going to be implemented this year for the selection committee. It's not RPI like the primary metric, but it's a metric they'll have access to, just like they had with KPI last year. I would just say this for the group, for the audience. It doesn't matter whether we like DSR or not. It doesn't matter. The best way I've heard this explained is basketball has had 6 metrics to judge teams on for years and years. And here's why they do it. Let's say, Tennessee basketball in the basketball tournament, their 6 metrics say that they are 14th, 15th, 16th, 12th, 17th, and 41st. Well, one metric is the outlier, right? Like that one metric sticks out like a sore thumb. And the way these guys posed it to me in the one conversation I had with Coach Farron was like, but in baseball, how do you know if RPI is the 41 or the 5 that are clustered? You don't know. Like, it could be the outlier. And that's why it behooves you to have multiple metrics, is it allows you to sniff out outliers and then do more homework as the selection committee. And that is very intuitive to me. Whether I like DSR or not, I do like it, but that's irrelevant, honestly, for me, Burkie. It's like just having more metrics, it protects us. And then this was reaffirmed this week. And Kendall Rogers has a great piece on this from last summer, but we are seeding 1 through 32 in the NCAA tournament this year. Now, it's not perfectly 1 through 32. There's a little bit of a pod system there, so they can still be a little bit regionalized. But those were 2 NCAA tournament pieces, that DSR is in play and that we are seeding 1 through 32 this year.
I think the RPI thing is fascinating because 2 different algorithms, so to speak, 2 different computer rankings that value different things differently. And I think that's important because I do think, for the most part, the RPI tend to tell us our eyeballs. Like, our eyes rarely way off from what most of us humans think. However, there is a way to really game the RPI. Like, you have to go out there and win those games and be committed to some of those. But we know playing road playing teams in mid-major conferences that are very successful on the road. These things are extremely valuable as it pertains to your RPI. And I'm not saying those aren't, nothing about that's evil. It's just some of those things feel overweighted, I guess is what I'm saying. And so to have another metric that gives us another viewpoint, I think is only helpful. And then the 1 through 32 is really good. I mean, I think that's really good because every year we have some, I mean, you and I are sitting there in squeeze play being like, wait, what? Like, Oral Roberts is a 2 seed and nobody told him. Like, what happened here? So, they're just trying to eliminate some of those head scratchers of some of these programs that keep getting sent teams that don't feel like 4 seeds or don't feel like 2 seed, like the 2 seed that should be in line with, the 1 seed, that kind of stuff. And I know this doesn't necessarily pertain to the 4 seeds, but it's just a bigger picture of the top seeds should, in theory, get the easiest draws.
Yep.
Right. So it's just it's more layers around that. And I think that's helpful.
Totally agree. One other point there that I'd love to see us consider someday is also seeding teams 61 to 64. Like every year there's a handful of teams that just really struggled and got themselves in the tournament somehow. And I do feel like the top 4 teams in the tournament should be rewarded by playing those teams. But again, that's another thing to think about. Like, some of these under 500 teams or teams that, we realistically know have no chance in the deal. But final point, Burkie, and then we'll wrap. The ABCA is also when we have our annual D1 baseball dinner, and it is a joy. Favorite dinner of the year. That's why we got to get you there one of these years. And yeah, you just want, it's just so funny. Like with the D1 baseball guys, they're in my life every day. Like we're constantly talking, chatting in our threads every day, but I see them twice a year. Like I literally see the D1 guys twice a year. I see them in Omaha and ABCA, and that's it. It's kind of weird to be so close to people that you never see, but that's the modern world. But the dinner is glorious. It was so fun.
Yeah, and I sorry I missed that. It just to our listeners, Roons, if they're sitting there going, man, I need to check this whole ABCA thing out, and is that an open invitation? If you're, just Joe Blow, love baseball, can you get to the ABCA? Help these people out.
That's a good question. Like it is a member situation, like you have to be a member or a member of the media, but I mean, it's in famous locations, and the only thing where you have to have an ID to get into is the actual ballrooms. So I think I would say this, Burkie, if you're a baseball fan, come into the ABCA one year, and I will report back on this. I don't want to lead someone astray, but if you're a baseball fan, like I think you come to this thing and have a blast. Like most of the action is like, it's not just in the ballrooms. It's like, it's the dinners, it's the meals. It's a baseball bonanza is what it is. Very good. All right.
Expo, right? With all the new gadgets and the all the things that are around the sport.
Yes.
That has to be open to the public, right? Or you could buy a ticket to that, I would think.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some homework on that. Get homework for Coach Rooney. Guest pass, ABCA. Or you could just steal Kendall Rogers' ID, and then you're good. Very good. All right, Burkie, that was a good one.
Because he doesn't need one. The big Tex doesn't. He doesn't need one.
His wife was there this year, Burkie. Final nugget, and the great Angela Rogers and Kendall were walking around. She said, "I felt like I was walking around with Britney Spears," which was an absolutely amazing line. So, very good. The Britney Spears of college baseball.
Did his phone sign any autographs?
It should have. It should have had its own booth, is what it should have had. So, very good. All right, Burkie, well done. Hey, we appreciate it, everybody. Yes, let's go. That's it. We'll catch you next time on the D1 Daily Podcast.